tonight. Sorry, just my thing was making noises there. So welcome everybody tonight. As you all know, we launched our new strategy in April, and part of that strategy was about us being more accessible and more visible to the various membership of the and to clubs within Northern Ireland. So and we're planning to run quarterly webinars just on various topics and things, just to make that connection, so people know what's happening, what we're doing within RYA Northern Ireland. Sometimes it will be something to do with a board issue like tonight, or other times it will be the staff who will be talking about various relevant topics at that time. So we hope these become sort of something that people know to look out for, and start to sign in. So this is our first one. So let's hope it goes well. Okay, so this morning, so what we're going to do this evening is just first of all, just to introduce you to the board members that we have. Unfortunately, not all the board members were able to be here tonight, but because it's a sailing season, some of them are out sailing. Imagine that, instead of being on a webinar. But anyway, so hopefully they're getting a good breeze for it tonight. So I'm just going to go through, I'll just introduce myself, and then I'll just hand over to each of the other board members, if you would just in turn to say a little bit about who you are, what area you cover, and just a bit about, and say just a wee bit about your background and so on. So my name is Susan McKnight, and I'm the current chair of RYA NI board at present. So this has been my third year in office. So I initially came on as vice chair, and then took over chair in the middle of COVID. So that was an interesting time to do that. I'm a member of SLYC Sailing Club, and I own a 102-year-old river now, so which is sail at SLYC. So that's just a bit about me. I'm sort of worked very closely with the whole team, and it's been certainly one of the great achievements that we have managed this last year, is to get our strategy up and running, and we're very proud of what we've done here. So can I hand over to Liz? You're the next person that I see along the list here.
Yep.
So
no problem. Hi, my name's Liz Baker, and I'm the chair of the Training and Development Committee. I previously served on that committee for a few years before becoming chair just last year. I'm a member of Coyle Yacht Club, currently social secretary, and have been a previous past Commodore of Coyle. And my son is Hammy Baker. You probably all know him more than you know me. I'm working very closely with Mary, and at times with the performance committee as well, in looking after the development of RYA facilities within our clubs, including the training program, etc., and training our instructors.
Okay, David, do you want to? Oops, David's getting his. David, can I hand over to you?
Yeah, okay. Just the kitchen staff come in again. David Williams, treasurer and member of the Cruising Environment Committee. I am 8 years, I'm told, in this position. So if anyone wants to take my place as treasurer, they're welcome. I'm also a member of Strangford Yacht Club and Irish Cruising Club. And my main occupation at the moment is to cruise. That's about it.
Okay, that's great. Jill, can I ask you to?
Yeah, hi, my name's Jill Heron, and I sit on the board as the champion for equality, diversity and inclusion, and also safeguarding. So I work very closely with Gail and the staff team to look at both those areas and make sure that we have all aspects of those covered. I'm a member of Coyle Yacht Club and Killalay Yacht Club, and do a little bit of cruising in our Moody 38. That's me.
That's great. And lastly, but by no means least, Roy.
Yes, my name is Roy Totten, and I am a member of the board and chairman of the Cruising and Environmental Committee. My sailing started in Loch Ness with racing flying 15s many years ago. My real interest now is cruising and also helping other people to understand how we need to look after the wonderful environment that we explore on boats.
That's great. Thank you. We have a couple of other board members who can't be here tonight. So hopefully you'll get to meet them at another time. One of them is Peter Kennedy, who is our performance, the director for the performance committee, and then Gavin Watson, who is the vice chair of the board at the moment. We've also been recently advertising for a few to fill a few places that we have, and delighted to say that we have a few prospective new members who are due to join the board soon. So when they do, we will let everybody know who we've got on board again. Okay, shall we move on to the next slide? Okay, so what we've done a bit of just hopefully introducing some of the people who are on the board, and just hopefully that gives people a face to a name. I think it's always useful to know who people are, and that's really what we're about this year, is trying to make ourselves as opposed to just names on the list, actually people who you can relate to and who you probably know or have met out sailing. The purpose of tonight's webinar, we wanted really to say with these webinars are to try and bring to the fore some of the issues that we have, and come at a couple of recent areas that we've been looking at within the board are looking at charity status for RYA NI, and then just looking at some of the issues, particularly around the term for the chair of the board. And looking at whether we can change this. So the purpose of tonight is just really to have a sort of an informed discussion about this, if anybody has any issues that they want to raise, and certainly for anybody who's watching this at a later date, if you have any questions that come up, please feel free to contact Greg or myself, or any other board members or any of the staff in RYA. Okay, so will we move on to the charity status there, Greg? Okay. Oops. Too far. So this is something that has come up, and we've been had a few discussed it at a few of our board meetings earlier this year, and we're looking at possibly changing our status to become to have a charity status. So the big question is why change? Predominantly it is an opportunity for additional revenue, which in turn then, if we can look at that, increase the impact we can have as an organisation, particularly on the development of sailing. Also opens up availability of grants that can become available to us as a charity, and it helps as well with other income streams, sort of savings that become available as a result of being a charity. So there's lots of financial reasons why this is good. Certainly, and David, please, you jump in if you want to say any, add any further additional information here. It certainly is something that we are continually mindful of. With any organisation, you need some kind of good finance in the background to operate. And as we all know, the world is a very volatile place at the moment, and so we can never be totally sure of what our finances are with regards to income. And this is just a way that we sort of felt might help to give us a wee bit more stability, or give us a bit more control over what we are doing going forward.
Susan, can I link to that? I think we, just for context as well, we're very heavily reliant on Sport Northern Ireland funding, which makes up the majority of our funding. We get some from RYA. They are our two funding sources. So we, as part of our strategy, very much it was about trying to diversify income and making sure we weren't so reliant on one or two funding sources, which if they either got reduced heavily or got cut altogether, the organisation would really struggle. So it's just about, kind of diversifying those income streams. So, Susan, thank you.
No problem. Thank you. That's great. So far, where we've gone with it, I've already alluded to the fact that we have discussed this at a couple of board meetings already. We've also different areas that we've gone down the process so far. We've been in consultation with the RYA, conversation with other sports who have also made the same transition, and I think that's been quite enlightening for us, that we've actually found quite a few other sports have gone, quite big sports have gone down that road, and we've discussed it at the board. All these particular areas that we've been looking at so far have been very favourable. With regards to the board, we've approved exploratory work to look into the benefits and challenges in transitioning to a charity status, and approved the transitioning to a charity status subject to member approval. So really, in principle, the board are happy with going down this road. Obviously, it'll have to go to, we'll talk about it a bit more, to member approval. Also, because there's legal implications, we've been having conversations with our own solicitors with regards to any sort of legal implications there would be for us as a board. Greg or Gail, do you want to add any more to what we're talking about here?
Yeah, I can quickly touch on our conversations with other national governing bodies of sport, and then perhaps Gail, if you can say any word around the solicitors' feedback on kind of what the process is for us if we move to charity status. But so I mean, we spoke with netball and hockey, the main two we spoke with, who have larger kind of income expenditure than us, so bigger kind of portfolios of work, and the feedback was in the main positive. One thing we were concerned about and was discussed at the board is whether it would create additional work, particularly around kind of financial reporting and so on. But the feedback from those sports that have moved to charity status was that wasn't any more onerous than the reporting that they currently do as a company, or did previously as a company. And they both had identified around a 10 to 15% increase in income as a result of moving to charity status, either through sponsorship, grants, or individual giving, and usually a combination of all of those. So in terms of that reporting and mechanisms that they had to do, there was they didn't notice any additional, or not much additional work involved in that. So that was a positive from our perspective, from the board's perspective, that if we move down this route, we weren't going to then require more staff or more resource to then manage being a charity, which then almost defeats the point of generating additional revenue. There was only a minimal amount. But Gail, did you have anything to add or anything to say on the solicitor's perspective?
Just in relation to the solicitor and the process is we would submit an expression of intent that we would like to become a charity. That will then, when the articles, if it is approved by the membership, we would then have to submit that to the Charity Commission, and then it would be in the Charity Commission's hands to decide to make a decision on whether or not they see us as a charity. So just because we're going through this process, it does not mean that the Charity Commission will agree, and there may be some other bits and pieces that we will also need to do. But from speaking to the other governing bodies, we don't see there being an issue with it, but it is just that we need to be mindful that the decision ultimately lies with the Charity Commission.
Yeah, and the other thing to worth noting is in the consultation with RYA, they didn't see any changes in terms of the MOU, a memorandum of understanding we have with them. There was be no change to the relationship, and potentially there may be a chance for additional income coming in. So yeah, that they didn't see any challenge or difference in us moving to charity status in terms of that relationship with RYA, is obviously kind of as part of the RYA family.
Okay, that's great, thank you. Okay, any questions so far with regards to this section of the...
I've got 2 questions, and as the only non-ball person quite here, have you spoken to, you talked about talking to hockey and netball. Have you talked to any other small sports organisations, smaller than RYA or those 2, and see whether who have gone down the charity route, has it had any beneficial impact on them? Has it created more work for them?
So hockey and netball were the main 2 we spoke to. So yeah, I don't think there was anyone else we had a conversation with us yet, was there?
No, I also think just to be mindful that a lot of those smaller sports, some of those smaller sports you're talking about, maybe don't have professional staff in place. So we maybe wouldn't be comparing like for like with them, that for some of the smaller governing bodies that maybe don't have administrative staff in place, they may come from a different angle. So we did a comparison almost with governing bodies that would have similar staff, slightly larger staff, but similar staffing structures to RYA NI.
Okay, that's fine, thank you. The second question I've got is, we talk about going to members. 1 or 2 of you will know that I've had a bone about members. Gail is smiling. What we define as a member of RYA Northern Ireland is my question.
Do you want me to?
Perfect, yeah.
Membership of RYA Northern Ireland is defined in our Articles of Association as clubs and affiliated bodies. And that is what has been defined within the article. So that it would be those clubs and affiliated bodies that we would be seeking approval from.
I think to add to that, Mark, so just before you come back, is I think what we see these opportunities as, and very much how we try to pitch tonight, and so yeah, again, appreciate you joining, is that whilst it's the clubs that get the vote, we want to consult with you know, and allow personal members hear about the changes, feedback. Whilst they don't get a vote, we want to keep those conversations open with personal members to make sure that we do hear that voice as well. But yes, obviously the articles relate the actual vote for moving to charity status to clubs. But yeah, so hopefully that is an avenue that we want to keep open and keep the dialogue going.
We have trouble enough getting a quorum from the clubs, let alone all our members.
Sorry, Mark, you're on mute, I think, if you
David, you know my views about members and clubs, so I won't rehearse it here, but I think that the individual members are kind of important, and we're in danger of quite often of forgetting them. Yeah. Some clubs are extremely good at talking to their members. Other clubs are, let's put it this way politely, less good at talking to their members. So that is an issue in my view on asking for clubs to vote yay or nay once they've got the facts. Yeah.
I think, Mark, as well, that this is, and totally appreciate your viewpoint, because that's really what we're trying to do with these webinars. These webinars are open to anybody who sails, who's interested in sailing, to join in, and so we can hear their view and listen to what they have to say. So this isn't just something that we send to clubs. Everybody, we're putting it out so everybody can join and say this is the first one. So hopefully in ones to come that we'll have a lot more people signing in to join us to hear what we have to say, but this is very much
Oh,
part
no.
of what we're going to do.
I hope so as well for you. I found out about this through the newsletter, not through my club.
Yeah. And we appreciate clubs aren't all very good at, as you say, some are very good and some are not so good at communicating with different things. So obviously we are trying our best through all different avenues to try and get out to as many people as we can do. So
yeah, no, thank you for that.
Thank you. Greg, do you want to move on to the next section?
Yeah, no, just before I do, I'll just kind of summarise on what's next for this particular one. But yeah, so obviously we'll kind of allow for feedback following this webinar, which will be posted for others to feedback or ask questions to. And then the next step for us would be we'd look to get any changes approved by written resolution. Because that's a much better way for us to do that, to get the 75% votes in. It also allows for the changes to be made before AGM. So the plan would be feedback until kind of September time, and then we'd go out with the written resolution to clubs to vote on to make a decision by mid-October time. And then obviously we have the AGM later in November. So that's the kind of next steps for this. Obviously, all dependent on kind of any feedback and questions we get in the meantime as to whether that delays the process at all to explore different areas. So yeah, I'm going to talk through the second area of consultation this evening. So that is on the chair term's length. So this is something we've looked at a lot of different areas of governance and articles over the past year, particularly in light of the new strategic plan, to make sure we keep the momentum going from launching that in March, where we launched it at the Crown Plaza with lots of clubs and members in attendance. So we wanted to make sure we looked at all the different areas to make sure our governance was in the right place and allowed us to really build momentum going forwards. And one of those areas we looked at was the term of the chair, and the current term of the chair is 1 3-year term, and other board members would sit 3 times 3 years, so 3 terms of 3 years. And looking at other organisations that, in terms of their chair term, they would usually be much longer than 1 3-year term. It's rare for a governing body of sport to have a short 1-year term. There's usually at least kind of 2 lots of 2 years or 2 lots of 3 years. So see a bit further down in this slide that RYA Wales have 2 times 4-year terms. RYA Scotland have 2 2-year terms, so a total of 4 years. And RYA have 3 lots of 3 years, 3 terms of 3 years. So obviously there's always opportunities for break at each of those end of terms. But yeah, the main areas really is to just increase that sustainability with the organisation and that connection and those relationships, making sure they're built over time. So we wanted to create that smoother, longer preparation time for finding and handing over for a new chair as well. It's quite, if you're coming in a 3-year term, your first year's spent getting to know the role and the organisation. Second year, you're being more active in the role, and the third year, you're almost starting to hand over. So it didn't feel long enough for the chair to really get to grips with both the relationships with staff and the work that they might do and getting to know members and so on. So we wanted to bring that greater stability across that chair term. So there's been conversations at board level and looking at various different options, whether that was stay the same, whether that was a 3+1 or a 3+2 or even a 3+3. I think the board only wanted to really look at 2 terms as opposed to 3 lots of terms like the RYA. And the proposition that came forward was for a 1 3-year term plus an additional 2 years, with then the option of an additional year. The hope is that they'd stay on for an additional year on the board to support transition and hand over to the incoming chair. If that wasn't the case and they weren't able to do that, then at least there would have been that much longer period where we'd have been able to prepare for that, as opposed to a 3-year term where it feels you cut quite short. That's, I guess, why we were looking at this and the proposed position. There was, of course, always the flip side to that, and there is disadvantages of that. So obviously more challenging if there is a poor relationship between the chair and the rest of the board or CEO, and it's more difficult to find the chair perhaps that is prepared to take on a longer term length. A 3-year term probably feels manageable, whereas a 3+2 is obviously you've got a bigger commitment there. We feel as though that break at 3 years, and the board very much felt that the break at 3 years negates that a little bit. And you know, if there is the relationship isn't strong between the rest of the board and the chair, we've had conversations with solicitors around making sure it's clear in the articles that the board are able to activate that break at 3 years, if that was the case. So either the chair or the board can activate the break at 3 years, and so that hopefully negates those disadvantages that have been identified in both those areas. So in terms of next steps, we are looking at article changes. So we've had conversations with solicitors as to what that looks like. And similar to the charity status, we would look to take this to written resolution. So we'd look to do both at the same time, the chair term length and the charity status as a written resolution for clubs to vote on in going out in kind of mid-September time. So yeah, that's a fairly brief overview of the change that we're proposing, but yeah, happy to take any questions or comments. Yeah, Mark, did you have any at all?
No, I think it's quite a good idea. I chair actually an international voluntary organisation,
okay, and
have 2 members of staff, and we do actually 2 and 2.
Okay.
With a potential, if everybody really thought it was right, to do an extra 2 after that. But I've now been chair for 2 years or so. So yeah, and I was a director before. So I knew the organisation, I knew the staff, and they knew me, which meant that the first year, yes, I was learning what being chairman was about. Second year, I was able to start to actually do things and do a bit like you've done, Susan, create a strategy going forwards. So yeah, I would totally support going forwards with a break clause, but for a longer period than just 3 years.
That's very helpful. Thank you.
Does any other board members want to add anything or say anything at all on this one?
I think it looks about perfect. You've got options there to break at 3. You've got an additional 2 years to get more work done, and maybe a third at the end of that to finish a project. I think it's perfect.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. Thank you, Liz. If there's no other questions or comments on that one, we'll move on. So I think the next steps for both of those, as we mentioned, will be to move forward with a written resolution, and following obviously any other questions or comments from clubs and members, and in the meantime, so that would expect that in mid-September time, both at the same time. So but as Susan said at the beginning, for people watching this post the live webinar, do feel free to send some questions in afterwards to any of the staff or board team. So yeah, now's I guess the opportunity for just any other questions that people may have for the board. Obviously we've got Mark here if there's anything that you would like to ask either myself or Gail or the board around any of the business really across RYA, and that's what we'll hope to do. We'll have themed topics for each quarterly webinar, and the next one I think, Gail, we were going to focus on performance, and then we'll always have an opportunity though at the end have questions around that topic area, but also any questions that anyone would like to ask around any areas of the business as well. So yeah, is there any questions at all?
Can I make a suggestion to you that maybe a Wednesday or a Thursday night, certainly during the sailing season, ain't probably the best night to do it, and maybe a Monday night when I'm not aware of many clubs racing on a Monday night. You might get a few more people coming to it. So that would be first thing. The second thing is I congratulate you actually on doing these webinars. I think it's a great idea. So, I hope you do get more people coming to it.
I think so. Thank you very much, Mark. That's great. And I think there's never a good date to start these things on, is there? So no. I think you're absolutely right. And hopefully now the next one won't be until, is it October, November, I think, isn't it?
I think it's November. So what we'll do in the future, easy, we will share all of the future dates. I think we've just got to get one of the dates sorted. So we'll have 3 before April. So I think the next one, the focus will be around performance, but we'll double check that and get those out via the e-zine. And for anyone watching this that doesn't get the e-zine, please do drop us a note. We've recently started to share news in a slightly different way. So we had a new e-zine that started about 6 weeks ago now. So I think we're coming up to the 4th edition. It's been the readership of it and the opening of stories has been much improved from the previous kind of communication news channels that we had. So we tried to get everything into one place as opposed to having 2 or 3 different outlets for updates and news stories. But Gail, what's the email address that people should contact us with questions or to get onto the e-zine?
If they want to contact us at ryani at rya.org.uk, then that comes through to myself. In relation to the e-zine, again, if they email me, we can add them to the list.
Right. Okay. Well, if there's no further questions, if you've run out of all your questions or comments, Mark, thank you very much for joining us this evening. And I say this is the first, and hopefully we always have to start somewhere. So it's been good to get this up and running. And thank you all for coming and joining us this evening. And anybody who's looking at this afterwards, please do feel free to contact us if you have any questions about any or any comments about any of the discussion that there's been tonight. Thanks very much.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank
Thanks.
you.
Bye.